Hello again, I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Walero.
Welcome to FAIRtax Power Radio. We are
the FAIRtax Guys.
Inviting you to get in touch with us at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. That's our email address. Also to like us on Facebook and check out our next Facebook Live event sometime in January. We'll figure out exactly when that's going to be and post that up in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Or maybe more than a few minutes, but we'll get to it.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure that out. And real quickly, before we get into today's episode, we have been keeping track of how many proposed changes to the tax code the Congress critters have been making.
Oh, no.
And a couple of weeks ago, it was like 1,061. Today, it's up to 1,091. 1,091 proposed changes to the tax code. At least that's how many hits you get when you go to congress.gov and you search on the string Internal Revenue Code.
In quotes.
Of course, you know, in all fairness, not all of that is going to become law, but it shows you just how much the Congress critters love monkeying with the tax code.
And you know that behind most of those proposals are wads of campaign cash coming at the congressmen who are proposing these things. It's a bad relationship. What chance do you and I have for influencing the tax code in our favor against a system like that?
Not a whole lot.
No.
We have got a very special episode of FAIRtax Power Radio this time around. Now, Ron, as president of the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association, you've been going out meeting with a lot of different people, and you have got a little group of business people that you meet with every Wednesday.
Yep, every
to talk
Wednesday
about
at
the
noon.
FAIRtax. And you have come up with these folks have come up with some really good input on the FAIRtax, and so I'm just going to toss it over at you and let you explain what's going on and what this group came up with.
Well, the group, the name of the group is Select Business Associates, and it is a small group of small business people. We have a variety, and plus we only allow one person from each category, so we don't get a lot of overlap. So I asked them, and I warned them.
Categories being what? What are some of the
different business categories? Like we have one real estate agent, one banker, one publisher. One mechanic and so forth.
Oh, okay.
So there's not a lot of overlap, and it's a diverse group. And you know the old saying, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Mm-hmm. And these people are part of the 20%.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, so the last couple of meetings, one just before I came to the studio here, I've asked them, how is the FAIRtax going to help you in your business? Well, we got a lot more answers than just how it's going to help them.
The standard stuff, it'll reduce the paperwork. If you're in the wholesale business, if you're not in a retail business, your tax liability goes away entirely.
Yeah.
But this is over and beyond the stuff that we've been talking about on FAIRtax Power Radio practically from day one.
I got a lot more than just how it's going to help them in their business. I mean, they're enthusiastic about it because we talk a little bit about it. Everybody has their chance to talk about their business, but they like to hear about the FAIRtax too. So Tom is a publisher. He has 4 little monthly newspapers that he puts out. And we asked him, how's it going to help you? And he says, there's this one example when his CPA lost all of his information that he gave him. Lost all of his stuff for his tax return.
Oh my gosh.
So Tom had to recreate all that stuff. He had to go through all of his records and get all of the stuff for both his business and his personal tax return and get it all over again and give it to a CPA.
Well, how big a U-Haul trailer did he have to rent to haul all that stuff over across town to his CPA?
Yeah, so you just got to wonder. And he also mentioned this was, a week and a half or so ago. His CPA just finished his 2016 tax return. Okay, as we record this, it's December of 2017.
December 6th, to be exact.
And his CPA had just finished. He kept getting extension after extension. But you know what? When you owe the tax on January 1st, you can get an extension, but you're going to pay the interest and not penalties, but you're going to pay the interest. So for some reason, his CPA kept putting it off and getting extensions. He finally got it done like 11 months later.
Well, I know a CPA in Colorado that might be able to help him out a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. So, and there's another incident with Tom in which, now I have to explain, Tom doesn't mince words. When he gets into a discussion with somebody, he's got a good sense of humor, but he also doesn't back down. Well, he apparently got into a discussion with an IRS agent in one of the local office here.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
And apparently Tom didn't mince words during that discussion. Funny thing, but shortly after that, Tom found out that the IRS didn't have any record of his tax return.
Wow.
That he already sent them.
He's lucky he's not in jail.
He knew exactly what happened. He knew who did it. He could not prove it. But somehow the tax return that his CPA sent to the IRS disappeared magically. And so that had to be done all over again, too. At least the CPA had records and had to resubmit it. But, these are like horror stories that, for Tom, it's going to save him a lot of time, and it's going to mean that he's not going to need a CPA to do his tax return.
Yeah, how many billable hours did he have to pay for?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
I think that's what we've been calling compliance costs all this time. Stuff you have to spend over and above your tax liability to comply with the law and stay out of jail.
Yeah, and in many cases, like a small business like Tom, the compliance costs are much, much higher than the tax itself. It's crazy. Now, compare that to the FAIRtax. What are the compliance costs with the FAIRtax?
To the consumer, none.
He sells ads for his newspaper.
Yeah.
He has a certain amount of income. He takes 23% of that. Boom, you're done. It takes, 15 minutes? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's entirely different. Then there's Dr. Ron. Dr. Ron is 89 years old.
Okay.
Now, you would think that at 89...
And he's still running a business.
He's still running a business because he served in the military. He spent a lot of time in Central America, speaks fluent Spanish and so forth, has run a number of businesses, has his PhD in business, and there's only one thing he's not good at, and that's retiring. He's tried retiring several times, and he can't stand it. So he's, in fact, we call him Dr. Print because he's got a little printing business.
Okay.
He said, as far as getting information for the FAIRtax, the cash register system is going to do most of the work for you. It's going to keep track. Of all the sales that a business makes, it's going to keep track automatically. And whether you have to do it monthly or however often you have to send the return in, to the state organization. Because remember, it will be the states that collect the FAIRtax for the federal government. The vendor will collect it from the customer. The vendor will send it into the state, and the state will then collect it and send it into the federal treasury. And the vendor and the state get 0.25%. They get to keep 0.25% of what they collect for their troubles. So he makes the point that the cash register system is going to keep all the records. It's going to save thousands in tax preparations. He made the point that when he had his business that he has right now is pretty simple. It's a one-man operation, all right? But he has to do something to keep busy because, like I said, he can't stand retirement. In previous businesses, he used to have a storefront, a very active store here in Ocala. He would spend about 300 to 400 hours a year record keeping and gathering information and then sending it to the CPA. And then his CPA would charge him about $3,000 annually.
Wow.
Yeah. So, how do you make up for the 300 or 400 hours a year? You don't. That's
time lost that you could be, devoted to building your business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that sounds like what Leo Lindbeck and his friends out there in Houston came up with when they actually hatched this FAIRtax idea.
Yep.
We spend more time dealing with tax consequences than we do working on, helping our business.
Yeah,
and they figure there's got to be a better way to do, and there is.
And believe me, Dr. Ron, he knows his stuff. He's the one that taught me that, some people say, well, what if a millionaire earns several $1 million a year, but he only spends $1 million? Well, first off, like I've said before, it's none of your darn business. Secondly, savings, whatever he puts in savings, that's deferred spending. It's Dr. Ron that taught me that. Savings is considered deferred spending. Yeah. It will be spent at some point.
When he eventually buys his yacht or his Learjet or something like that, it gets spent.
Yep. And he also gave me the quote, innovation is what keeps manufacturing going. Innovation comes from research and development. And with the FAIRtax, there's going to be a lot more money available for research and development, like we just said. And if he doesn't have to spend $3,000 on CPA costs just to do his taxes, he can spend that on examining, all right, how do I expand my business? Should I open a storefront in another part of town? What will it cost, in terms of insurance and employees and stuff like that? Mm-hmm. He can do all that research and see if it's worth it, for a small businessman. So, and think of what it is for the huge corporations.
Oh, so. So he's 89, a one-man band operation.
Yeah.
And the FAIRtax would be a godsend for him.
You got to meet him someday. He is something else.
Okay.
He is sharp as a tack. All right. Kelsey is a young lady who works for an accounting firm. And I asked her, and she said, well, the CPAs will keep busy. For one thing, CPAs will keep busy during the transition period, the 3 years before the IRS is totally shut down. That's right. When the FAIRtax goes into effect, the IRS can no longer collect any more returns, but they will have 3 years to finish up whatever they're working on. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the CPAs will be busy with the corporations, helping them do that. And then they will also help the businesses to keep track of their tax-exempt sales, because that's very important. That's an issue, as we said, with the FAIRtax, business-to-business taxes are not subject to the FAIRtax. If you're running a business and you need to buy a new computer or whatever it is, that sale is not subject to the FAIRtax. You will have a tax-exempt card, so that when you go to the store to buy a computer, this is for my business, here's my tax-exempt card. They will not charge you the FAIRtax on that. And so keeping track of all that, because obviously it has to be documented, CPAs will keep busy helping businesses keep track of that stuff.
That is exactly what Jade Wally told us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And he said that tax preparation and all is just one line of the things that CPAs do.
Right.
And that there will be plenty of work for accounting firms and CPAs like himself and like Kelsey.
They still have to do auditing. Companies still have to keep, and the larger the company gets, the more important auditing becomes. And the CPAs will still do consulting. Like we said, research and development. They're going to need help in figuring out, what can we spend? What is it proper to spend? And Bob, here's another one. I don't think I told you about this young lady. A couple of years ago, we met this young lady here in Ocala. She is a forensic bookkeeper.
Forensic bookkeeper.
Yes.
You'll have to explain that one to me.
Well, she's an expert in QuickBooks, which, bless her little heart, I hated QuickBooks when I had to use it in our business, but she loves QuickBooks.
Okay.
She will be sent into a company on the pretense of helping them get their records in straight and set up QuickBooks. What she's really looking for is fraud and embezzlement, I should say. Yes, that's what she's looking for. And so corporations always have to be concerned about that. Is somebody in the corporation embezzling? Because some of these people are pretty creative and they can hide it for a while. And so that's another job of, and Jade Wally mentioned that too. Mm-hmm. And this young lady, she's a young, rather pretty young lady. You would never expect that she would be a forensic bookkeeper. I mean, she's not the typical looking IRS agent.
If I'm the owner of business, I want her on my side ferreting that stuff out.
Absolutely. If you got a number of business people, you got 10, 20, 50, 100 people, you need to keep track of what's going on. You need to keep close tabs on the finances in your company. The bigger you get, the more complicated it gets, and the more you'll need CPAs. So CPAs will have a lot to do, and that's what Kelsey was telling us. They're not concerned about the FAIRtax. That's not going to put them out of business. They're going to keep busy with a lot of the things they do now. They just won't have the headaches of the Internal Revenue Code and the IRS.
And they won't be on the hook if the Internal Revenue Service takes issue with something that they did.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember the IRS is judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to what's on your tax return. If they don't like it, they will find a reason to disallow a deduction or do something like that. And, of course, the CPA firms that are preparing all these things, they get called on the carpet as well as the business owner when something like that comes up in the IRS, and that all goes away. That headache goes away.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? Imagine what your business would be like, without the IRS and without the income tax to deal with. Life will be so much easier, and that's what Kelsey was telling us, is that CPAs are not worried about the FAIRtax. So this is This is another voice we've heard from about CPAs, because a lot of people say, oh, CPAs will be against the fair tax. They'll put them out of business. CPAs do a lot more than income tax, and a lot of CPAs really hate the income tax.
Yeah, because they have to deal with it themselves on their own basis,
yeah,
their own businesses,
absolutely.
And their own individuals.
So
nobody likes the IRS, and nobody likes preparing tax returns, and
Oh.
nobody likes all the money they got to spend to do. I mean, if it's just for you and me buying TurboTax, I mean that's still
Yeah.
$50 we shouldn't have to spend.
And the fact that even with the new plan that's coming out of the House and Senate, at this point, they're still, as of this recording, they're still in the reconciliation between the House and the Senate. All right. Yeah, they're going to reduce the tax rates for a lot of people, not for everybody. And it's going to make life a little simpler. But you know what? You still have to tell the government how much you made. That should be, we've grown so accustomed to this, it doesn't seem outrageous, but it is. Why should you have to tell anybody what you earn for the year? That's your private, personal business.
I think Thomas Jefferson would turn over in his grave if he knew that was happening, don't you think?
Yeah.
We'll talk to him next week.
That's right. Okay. Now, the next one here, Nikki is a real estate agent. She is an independent real estate agent. I shouldn't say independent. She works for a broker. So she's an outside contractor. She gets a 1099. Well, she has to drive here and there. She's got a lot of expenses she has to bear in dealing with her customers and so forth and trying to sell real estate. And so she has a lot of expenses that under the fair tax, she's going to have to keep track of. And she was asking, how do I do that? And I have to admit, I wasn't exactly sure. So I quickly sent off an email to Steve Hayes and Karen Walby. And they said, yeah, everybody who is tax exempt, if you're in business and you have business expenses, you will get a tax exempt certificate and an ID card. And when you go buy stuff for your business, you present that card, and then the fair tax will not be charged on that purchase. And of course, you'll have to account for that at the end of the year. Now, what about when she has to buy gasoline? There's no way you can do that. The price is embedded in the gasoline, the price of the gasoline. So what's going to happen there is she has to keep track, and any fair tax that's added to the gasoline and purchases like that you can't easily extract the fair tax from, she'll get a credit for that, and her, I don't know if they're going to do monthly returns, quarterly, yearly, whatever, but people will be given the opportunity. If you're in business and you have legitimate business expenses, they will not be subject to the fair tax. So there's going to be a method in place to make sure that you don't have to pay the fair tax on business-to-business expenses.
Yeah, and I know someone who is, internationally known in the gospel music field, travels literally all over the country, and his wife kind of helps keep all the track of all their business things. She has told me some absolute horror stories about, excuse me, because they go all over the country. They rack up lots and lots and lots of business miles.
Oh yeah,
because that's how they make their living. That's what they do, and all that is deductible because it's a business expense for them. But she says she has to wrestle with the IRS practically on a yearly basis because they have so much of this kind of stuff that most other people don't have, and all that goes away with. I told her about, wouldn't you like not to have to deal with that? And she became a fair tax supporter real quick.
Yes, I can understand why. That would be great. Well, certainly would make their life. And that's the thing.
But even though Kelsey doesn't go, or not Kelsey, this is Nikki, doesn't go all over the country. She goes all over the county.
Yeah, but she still puts a lot of miles.
She still puts a lot of miles on her cars. She has to differentiate how many and all that kind of record keeping is driving her nuts.
Yeah.
Goes away with a fair tax.
Yep, that's right. She'll just have to keep track of some expenses. She doesn't have to tell the IRS what kind of car it is, when she bought it, and how many personal miles she puts on it, and all this other nonsense. She just keeps track of the fair tax that she spends on any real legitimate business expenses. So it's not, and recording software, keeping track of this with software, business software, is not a big deal. It makes it much easier. It's not like you have to keep your paper receipts, but if you're diligent about making weekly entries into your computer system, when you're all ready to file the report, you just spit out that report, and you're done. So The last one was Steve, who's a travel agent and a professional photographer. He brought up a scenario. He said, well, he's trying to play devil's advocate.
Yeah,
okay?
We're talking about evasion.
Yes. And he said, all right, what if you have a situation where this manufacturer makes these widgets and the manufacturer sells them to this guy for $10 a piece? Now, at that point, they become used.
Now, is this manufacturer selling them retail to a consumer, or are they selling them wholesale to a distributor?
According to him, retail to a consumer.
Okay.
And the consumer turns around and resells them for $50 a piece.
I would love to find something I can buy for $10 and sell for $50, wouldn't you?
You can do that with some items. If you find something in an antique shop and you could buy for $5 and you find out it's worth $500, there's nothing wrong with that. But his example is obvious fraud. Okay, This guy, somebody's trying to get away. Well, all right. Here's the multiple line answer to this. We have 323 million people in this country, and when we go to the FAIRtax, yes, there's going to be some people who try to get away with it, and some of these people may be successful. The rest of them are not going to like the results, because remember, the federal government doesn't have to keep up with all of these transactions. Each state does. And there are 45 states that have a lot of experience with sales tax and people trying to defraud the sales tax. They know what to look for. These people are very good at doing this. Where we live here in Florida, since we do not have an income tax, Florida jealously guards their sales tax. And if you try to play fast and loose with the sales tax here as a vendor, you're going to find yourself in trouble right away, and you don't want to see what the consequences are. But there will be a few people who will try it, and a very few people will get away with that. But 90% of the purchases in this country are done at the big box stores. Walmart, Target, Sears, Kohl's, whatever, Myers up in the Midwest and so forth. How are you going to cheat on the sales tax when you go into one of those stores?
You're not.
No, you're not. And that's 90% of the sales, So most people, and here's another thing. With the FAIRtax, it takes two people to collude.
No, it doesn't. With the income tax, it takes two people to collude. Oh, you're right. FAIRtax is two.
Yeah,
you got it right.
With the income tax.
Long day.
And if you look at the evasion of the current income tax, it's horrible. It's up at the rate at like 21%, according to the study that was completed last March. That's like 1 out of 5 people are not paying their income taxes. They are evading the income tax. A sales tax.
One person to cheat the income tax, 2 to cheat a sales tax.
That's right.
Now I got it.
So with a sales tax, you have to have the vendor and the customer collude together to not pay the sales tax. And now you're doing conspiracy to commit fraud against the government. That's not a good situation to put yourself in. So the sales tax is much more difficult to evade. Some people will try, and very few people will be successful. But compare that to the current situation where we have over about $693 billion that's not being collected by the IRS because people are evading the tax code.
Wow.
Yeah. And that amounts to, and that, some of the people that have to make up for it, like people listening to this podcast, Bob and I, we have to make up the difference. So our costs go up, not only in taxes, but in the stuff we buy, because companies also have to make it up. So that's an extra expense for companies, and that means that their costs go up, and guess who pays for those?
Mm-hmm.
We do.
We do.
So the evasion of the current system is horrendous, and it's not getting any better. This tax plan that the House and the Senate are working on, trying to get a conciliation there, reconciliation, whatever they call it, it's going to reduce taxes, yeah, and that's good, and it's going to boost the economy. It's not going to stop or slow down evasion. The people who have decided that it's okay to evade, they're just going to continue to do that.
And it's gotten so easy to evade because fewer and fewer people as a percentage of the entire workforce are now working, for a W-2, working for a paycheck, get a W-2 and have their wages and earnings reported to the IRS. We've got a lot of people that are making money off eBay stores, off Uber drivers, lots of things that you can do on the side that aren't officially being hired by and working for someone, but you're still making money.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you most of those folks, hey, the IRS doesn't know about this. I don't think I'm going to tell them.
That's right. And people just look at disdain with the IRS and the income tax because it really is against the original intent of the Constitution. It's just bad news.
That's why an income tax was unconstitutional as the Constitution was originally written.
That's
right.
right.
It took the 16th Amendment in 1913, dumbest move this country ever made, to allow an income tax. Prior to that, the Supreme Court had indeed physically ruled it unconstitutional.
That's right.
And the fair tax requires that the 16th Amendment be repealed, or it's going to sunset and you get the income tax back. So we don't want to do that.
16th Amendment must go away. So it will be sister legislation, requires the ratification of 3/4 of the state. What do you think the chances are for that when people say, oh, if we ratify this, we get rid of the IRS?
When we ratify this, we get rid of the IRS. We get rid of withholding out of our paychecks. We get to bring home the full gross amount of our paychecks because the withholding goes away. The payroll taxes go away. Internal Revenue Service goes away. Tax returns go away. I mean, so much goes away with the fair tax that and people say, well, if we want to keep this, we better repeal this amendment. I think that is going to fly through in record time.
Oh, yeah.
Once people understand the difference between life under the fair tax and life with the income tax.
How do we get from here to there, Bob?
Well, first thing you do is you go to FAIRtax.org and you learn all about this. So, of course, you listen to FAIRtax Power Radio on a weekly basis. And once you understand it and decide that you're going to demand it like we say you will, go to bigsolution.org, BIGSOLUTION.org. And that's where you can sign up. That's where you can make a contribution to make it happen. Join Americans for Fair Taxation. Join the Fair Tax organization in your state. If there's not one, get a hold of us. We'll help you start one. But you've got to get active with this because the Congress critters have given us exactly what they want us to have. And there has to be enough of us out here, i.e. enough votes to swing an election to say, listen, we want the fair tax and we're not going to vote for you if you don't like it.
Yep. That's right. That's absolutely.
Go to PopVox and tell them that same thing.
Oh, PopVox, that's a good one. If you have not already, POPVOX.com. I didn't mean to spit into the microphone there, but POPVOX.com. And you can go in, you can weigh in on any legislation. We ask you to weigh in on H.R. 25, that's the bill in the House for the fair tax, and S-18, that's the sister bill in the Senate. And tell them you're in favor of it, and tell them why. And your comments will go to your congressman and both of your senators. So that's a great way to do it. And like Bob said, support the national organization and your state organization. And don't forget us. TheFairtaxGuys@gmail.com. TheFairtaxGuys@gmail.com. You have any questions, comments you want to add to the discussion, please send it along. We've gotten some great emails. The email that we originally got from Jade Wally, he's become like our resident CPA now. It's so good. What a huge resource to us.
Yes, you can leave us comments on our Facebook page. Now, there are several Facebook pages dedicated to the fair tax. We are the FAIRtax Guys.
Yeah.
The Florida Educational Association has their own page. There's a FAIRtax National page has their own page. But if you're looking for the FAIRtax Guys, you have to look for us specifically on Facebook. And we will be doing another Facebook Live here shortly. And we will announce exactly when as soon as we figure out when it's going to be. And that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
Again, we are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you that the fair tax is America's big solution. And once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming. Don't